For Johnny Warren fans, my name's Anthony Siokos. I'm joined by Matilda's legend, Julie Dolan. Julie, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
It's nice to see you here today. I wanted to ask you first of all, as the first Matilda, in terms of having the first Matilda's cap, how do you see the current state of our Matildas?
Oh, well, considering where it's come from, that was back in my day. It's amazing. The trajectory that they've been on has just been fantastic, you know, and it's what we all always imagined the Matildas could be.
And when you say imagined the Matildas could be, you've seen the game from the grassroots all the way up over the past 30 or more years. What are the big differences that you've noticed over the past, say, 4 or 5 seasons in the WLeague and also with the Matildas?
I think just the frequency with which the girls are playing now, and the opposition they're playing against. Back in the day, we played against whoever was playing at the time, or you know, if that wasn't good enough competition, then we'd play against boys, which was always great. So, but these days, you know, and they've got the coverage. They're also very, very talented athletes, you know, and you know, they've got a product now, so and that sells on TV, so it's going really well.
When you were training as a young woman, it was very much part-time, wasn't it?
Part-time in the sense that I guess there wasn't the frequency of competition, but certainly, you know, in terms of state and local rep and club, you know, we were out 6-7 days a week, so it didn't feel part-time.
In terms of the history of the game,
mm-hmm.
your view on the current Matildas, do you think they have a good sense of history, or do you think it's something that I guess could be built upon?
I think they do. It's not that long ago, you know, so they're not delving back into hundreds and hundreds of years. It's only 40 years ago, or a little bit longer. And the players that were around then are still around now, so they see them on an infrequent basis, but they still see them. So I think it's not lost on them. So yes, there's always more that could be done.
Yeah, and throughout your career as a player,
mm-hmm.
You've seen a lot of change in Australia.
Yeah.
Obviously, as the Football Federation Australia Awards are now called the Dolan Warren Awards.
That's right.
You've been honoured in that sense, which is fantastic. But throughout your career, can you possibly tell us maybe 1 or 2 of your fondest memories?
I think the fondest memories for me are, you know, travelling as part of the national team. That was always fantastic, no matter what. So, and the camaraderie and the games that we played, and just everything about the national team. So, and you know, I also have very fond memories of the attempts that were made for us to become more professional, like the first camp that we ever went on before a tournament. That was just unheard of in those days. So that was very exciting, and my coach at the time, Jim Selby, you know, he was instrumental in that era. So, and you know, the coach that I hold dearest.
Speaking of coaches, I guess it's a good point to make. How do you feel coaching at this time compares to what it was back then? Again,
there's more money in the game, so there's, you know, we're able to select coaches that we want, whereas previously it was, you know, in Jim's case, he was a fantastic coach, but, you know, nobody was paying him. It was out of the goodness of his heart, and you know, so there's a big difference, you know, because he had a job as well as we all had jobs, because we weren't getting paid. So it was a very different scenario back then. These days, you know, the national coach is paid, highly paid, I would imagine, and so be it. He's doing a fantastic job.
When we think of history, in terms of the Socceroos,
mm-hmm.
we see the 1974 Socceroos
mm-hmm.
as pioneers.
Mm-hmm.
You're obviously a pioneer of the women's game. What team in your era would you consider to be the team of pioneers?
Which team that I played in? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely the first team.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 1979 team. So, and you know, you can't discount the players that went after that, but and some of them stayed on for quite some time in the national team, but and could also be considered pioneers. So, there's quite a few.
Do you remember anything specific about the first match that the Matildas played in terms of it being official at Seymour Shaw Park in 1979?
Yeah, being official meant, you know, that a few more people out of the ordinary might have known about it, you know, but apart from that, nothing really memorable about exposure to the general public or fanfare or media attention.
Right, very different times.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of Johnny Warren, he's obviously an icon of the game
Yes.
in Australia, somebody you hold dear, somebody the Australian football community holds dear, and of course you're equal in the men's game. Do you have any specific memories or thoughts on his legacy?
John's legacy, you know, it's something that was built because of who he was, not in particular anything that he did, I didn't think, but it was just what he gave to the game, and you know, as a player and after he finished playing. So, and legacies are built like that. So, yeah, it's a huge. He's had a huge impact on the game.
Do you think in terms of our future, our history is something that needs to be, I guess, put to the forefront?
Oh yeah, I think any sport history needs to be at the forefront. It doesn't have to get in the way of the current, because that's what we're all about. You know, we want to see what's happening now and how our team's doing. That's just a natural reaction. But in the back of everyone's minds, we know through the history where we've come from, so it is important.
Absolutely. And in terms of your view of the legacy that you as a former Matilda would like to leave, I know it's a very personal question, and what you believe needs to happen for the Matildas and for Australian football in general, is there any one thing that you think needs to be focused on? Or
I think there's a lot of things that need to be focused on. There's not just one thing, and that's what builds momentum and cohesion and I guess stability and growth in a game. So it's all these things pulling together and working cohesively.
Prosperity is one of the things that Johnny used to talk about, that Australian football would benefit the country. A lot of people think that his mission was purely a football mission, but those who are close to him and those who know Johnny very well would say it was about the prosperity of the nation. The Matildas at this point in time have a lot of support,
Yes.
but a lot of also opportunity.
Yes, very much so.
How do you think, I guess, over the next decade, we will see women's football in Australia?
I think given the current trajectory that they're on, you know, we all imagine they will just keep climbing, and they have the opportunity to do that. They have the backing behind them, they have the public adoration, they have the media attention, and they have the product. So all that coming together should keep them building and building. And a big test coming up is the World Cup. So,
Absolutely.
you know, they've, like I said, they've got everything behind them now, and let's hope they do really, really well.
A lot of people are talking about the meteoric rise of Sam Kerr.
Mm-hmm.
We have others that are coming through as well.
Yes.
Our Matildas team is very settled, but there are also people coming through off the bench and younger players that are coming through as well. Are there any players that you think at this point in time are the next ones to watch?
I don't think we've seen enough of the younger Matildas just yet. We're starting to see them because they're in tournaments as well. But in terms of them getting played in the national team, you know, they're there on the bench and still probably waiting to be blooded, so to speak. But you know, the Matildas team would be hard to get into right now. There's so many talented players, you know. And yes, we do hear a lot about Sam Kerr, but she would be the first one to, you know, to point out that everyone else on the field is, you know, just as talented. So she's a very humble person and realises that it's a team game, and without the support of her team members, you know, maybe the rise wouldn't have been so great. So, but having said that, you know, let's not take away from her talent.
No, very talented player. Just lastly, the WLeague. It's seen humble beginnings and growth.
Yes.
What do you think needs to take place sooner rather than later for it to be as covered as the men's game, but also to see it grow?
It's a tough question. Many people think just expanding will you know, make it grow, and that's not necessarily the case, because do we have the players? You know, you don't want to weaken the competition because they've got quite a strong competition. So in that sense, we need grassroots coming through. We need the work at the grassroots so that these kids are developing and becoming, you know, competitors in that environment.
One of the questions that has been asked or challenged, I guess, in football and also in the women's game particularly, is the age of the young players coming through, and it's been a challenge for some ex-Matildas to basically outline the reasons why those players should either be held back or played in perhaps the young Matildas for a longer period of time, rather than brought in, say, you know, players that are 17, 18 and some even 15. I've seen in the media some former Matildas saying that we have a lot of talent, but they shouldn't be thrown in the deep end too quickly. What do you think about that?
I think there's definitely a case for not being thrown in the deep end, you know, and not being able to swim, because that would be detrimental to their development. So, and I think most coaches would be aware of that. I don't think they're under that much pressure to bring these kids through. So I tend to agree that yes, they should spend time in the age group where they qualify. But if they're good enough to then progress to the senior team, then, you know, why not give them that chance?
Absolutely. Julie Dolan, it's been an absolute pleasure to come and see you up on the central coast of New South Wales. We appreciate your time, and I know that Johnny Warren fans will be very pleased to hear your thoughts on Australian football and particularly the women's game. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Anthony.